Welcome back to Speak for Yourself. Jason Whitlock, Marcellus Wiley coming to you from our homes here in Los Angeles. All right, Speak for Yourself presented by Hyundai. All right, joining us now on the phone is LeVar Arrington, former NFL star. LeVar, you just heard Marcellus and I chop it up about Brady and Belichick. All right, who you think was more right? Marcellus thinks Belichick wanted Brady gone a little bit more than Brady wanted to be gone.
I think you're right on this one, Whit. I think Belichick did want Tom Brady gone longer, but I do believe that Tom Brady eventually came to the realization that he wanted to be gone just as much as Bill Belichick didn't want him there.
All right, let's go to your former hometown, Washington, D.C., the Washington Redskins. Ron Rivera, Marcellus, his first move as head coach, as a big move, is to trade a fifth-round pick for Kyle Allen, the former quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton's former backup. You think this move by Ron Rivera to make a move for Kyle Allen when Cam Newton's on the market, does that say anything about what Ron Rivera thinks about Cam Newton?
Oh, man, big fan of Ron Rivera, but once you become the coach of the Washington Redskins, which way is up in terms of really knowing if this is a smart move or not a smart move? Maybe Cam has escaped what a lot of people have not escaped, including our own LeVar Arrington, which is what happens when you become a part of this organization. Usually success doesn't follow. That said, I think this is an indictment on Cam Newton in this respect. Let's all go back to even Cam at his peak powers. We all sat there, even the biggest fans of Cam Newton, as I am one, sat there and started to add up all the awkward laughter that was surrounding him, which is people counting and adding up how much they're putting up with you just because of your greatness. But remember, those people who add that up, sooner than later cash that in. And I think this is that moment that they're cashing in all of the times that they had to put up with awkward leadership from Cam Newton, not necessarily a guy who can inspire all or lead all in the way that he went about his business. I think this is just a coming home moment for all those critics and naysayers who may have to stay silent for so many years, but now are speaking loudly against Cam.
LeVar?
You know, for me, I think it's more so it becomes clearer and clearer that it's his health. We could talk about all of the things that, you know, maybe Cam butted heads with coaches or maybe could have been a better leader. We can question all of those things. The one thing that is the biggest question as it stands right now is how durable is Cam Newton? We know that he you know, the reports are coming out that he has passed his physical. Let me tell you something. When I was in New York, I passed my physical to become a New York Giant. You know how long my health held up for? 5 games. All right? So when you say, a guy has passed his physical, he's good to go, guys should take him, that's not necessarily true. And we continue to hear that owner say, talk to me when he's healthy. When we hear about him being healthy, you come talk to me. They made a move in Carolina because of Cam Newton's health. Ron Rivera made a move on Kyle Allen because that is the best decision you can make with a backup / possible starter to come in if Haskins is indeed the guy that people think he is and can't sustain a starting job. I think it's more so about the necessity of, I know Kyle Allen is available. I know that I can use him in a starting situation if that calls for it. And Cam Newton, I just cannot hang my reputation or where I'm at now as a new head coach, knowing him and knowing where he's at currently on his health.
Totally disagree with you, LeVar, because I think Kyle Allen proved last year that he's a flash in the pan. You got to remember, this is an undrafted guy who didn't have much of a college career, or, you know, he's a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, didn't have the kind of college career that he thought he was, undrafted guy. Kyle Allen proved that he can be a spot starter in the NFL. I think they probably gave up too much to get him, but okay, if Ron Rivera believes in him that much in terms of helping establish the culture, and he's a guy that I like and respect, but I don't think the Redskins have made any commitment to any quarterback, Haskins, Kyle Allen, anything like that. And so I do see this as an indictment of Cam because, trust me, if Cam's mind was right, If Ron Rivera trusted him as a locker room guy, as a leader, as a chemistry guy, I think they would have made some sort of move for Cam Newton just on the off chance that he is able to recover his health. The upside is so enormous that you would have to make that move because Cam has proven he can be an MVP of this league. He can be a guy that can take you to a Super Bowl. Kyle Allen, Dwayne Haskins, hell no. Neither one of those guys. If I'm Ron Rivera, I'm not all in on Dwayne Haskins, and I could care less if the owner is. I'm a brand new coach. I'm not going to be attached to some quarterback that I didn't draft. And I think, again, Kyle Allen's proven he's not a full-time starter in this league. I still think the Redskins go after Tua Tagovailoa, and I do think all of this is an indictment of Cam and what Ron Rivera thinks about him as a locker room leader. Anybody else want to respond before we move on?
Yeah, man. You know, it's crazy that we need to all acknowledge how we're inserting more variables into the evaluation of players. It's style of play, it's style of leadership, all these style points instead of the protected holy ground which sports and that football field should represent, which is just for ballers. So no longer are we in that meritocracy or that pure evaluation of who's the better player. We're not talking about a criminal here. We're not talking about someone who has a long rap sheet or issues of that nature. We're talking about a guy that is clearly better than everyone in that room if you add him up. And he's still jobless right now because of other attributes that we are inserting into the equation when we evaluate these prospects, which is unfortunate to me and why you see some teams like a Washington that's just hanging around 500 for so many years because they don't do the purest evaluation and get the best guys.
That's 100%.
All right, LeVar, we don't have time for LeVar, we don't have time for you to respond.
Yeah.
I want to say this. Cam Newton just officially released by the Carolina Panthers. He's been moved on from. I will say this, Marcellus. Those evaluations, those other things are what coaches and executives do to all employees, whether in football, television, cab drivers, whatever. Let's move on to this, though, because I think that's a perfect segue, what you said, into our Cam Newton and Jameis Winston, both available. I'm just wondering if at some point will the media, the woke media that loves to play the race card a lot of times, if they're going to make something of the fact that Cam Newton, a former MVP, Jameis Winston, former #1 pick, got through the most passing yards in the league last year. Will the woke media make a big deal about Cam and Jameis both being jobless?
I don't think so. I don't think the woke media is even going to wake up for this one. I think the sleep media, the other side, is going to even scratch their head and say, Cam Newton doesn't have a job? Like, okay, we all know the numbers. There's 32 starting quarterbacks, and Cam Newton's one of the best 32 quarterbacks walking this planet. We get it. So he deserves that situation. But this is not Colin Kaepernick or anything of that nature. This is simply bad optics for the NFL, for Carolina, for any team out there that doesn't really look at Cam Newton as a suitable starter if they're not already in that position. We have basically submitted to the optics that Matt Rule can come from college, get a contract that's worth $70 million, and then give him the power to release a Cam Newton to the streets. Woke, sleep, I don't care what media you're a part of. You got to scratch your head at that
one. LeVar?
You know, I think woke media will jump on it because it's an easy target to jump on. You're not landing an airplane on a stamp in pitch black. This is a very nice landing strip. So I think it does turn into a story based upon racial lines. But the reality here, and I'm going to stay where I'm at with Cam. Cam is going to want to be a starting quarterback. I'm not bringing in, first of all, there's very few slots available in the NFL for a starter as it stands right now. I'm not taking a chance on bringing in a guy that I don't know is going to be able to maintain his health going into the season. It's just not a prudent and wise move. That's for one. As it applies to Jameis, it's almost the same in the sense that Jameis is not going to want to come in a backup role. All right. When you look at the situations, Cam is just now being released. Jameis being released. Everybody's not, nobody's going to use trade bait because you're going to release those guys. So now it comes back to Cam's health, and it comes back to, do I think that Jameis can be a starter? I think Jameis gets onto a team, but the question is he brought in as a starter, or is he brought in as a guy that can compete for the starting job but will start off as a backup? I think that it's just as much has something to do with Jameis in this situation and possibly Cam just as much as it does the teams that may possibly want to sign them.
Yeah, I agree with you totally, LeVar. I lived this situation with Jeff George in his early 30s. He got into a situation where he was so talented that he was too talented to bring in as a backup. Because if the guy sitting behind the guy you've committed to as a starter is throwing a better ball in every practice than the guy you got sitting out there as a starter, that can create dissension inside your locker room. With Cam Newton and Jameis Winston, but particularly with Cam Newton, I'm telling you, in shorts and a shoulder pads and just throwing the football around and in practice, he's probably going to look better than most of your starters. There's people talking about Jameis Winston, he'd be a good choice to be a backup in Dallas. That's high risk. If he's backing up Dak Prescott, he's got a better arm than Dak Prescott. He's got a better college career than Dak Prescott. He's more talented than Dak Prescott, and there's a chance his decision-making in practice will make him look like potentially a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. That's where fit is going to be a big deal for both of these guys and what they say in an interview with coaches. I think it's going to be very difficult for Cam Newton to accept being a backup quarterback. I think there's a shot that Jameis Winston can wrap his mind around being a backup somewhere. But where is that fit? Because there's a bunch of young quarterbacks coming into this draft. There's some more following them the next year. There's a lot of teams that feel good about their quarterback situations. There's not a lot of opportunity. I think Cam and Jameis would both be more talented than Tyrod Taylor. But Marcel,
Jameis,
does Anthony Lynn want to?
Jameis obviously could accept the backup role. That's obvious. Like, listen, there's no shock to the soul of Jameis Winston if he has to accept the backup role for a year or so. But that would devastate Cam Newton, and it's really unfortunate, unfair. I want you guys to travel with me to this parallel universe as we keep putting up this graphic that shows Cam Newton 0-2 last time we saw him on the field in 2019, which is really unfortunate because Cam Newton, if he didn't play at all last year, because the injury happened in the preseason. So imagine he doesn't play at all. Then what we have as reference last time seen was a 6-2 Cam Newton who was an MVP candidate. I only bring that up because we're talking about Tom Brady, who missed an entire season. And when he came back, it wasn't an injury-prone conversation. It was, he's back. And Cam Newton is younger than a Tom Brady at the time of injury. So all I'm saying is Cam Newton is not going to be able to reconcile all these variables and accept him as a backup in the NFL. He's going for a starting gig.
All right, LeVar. Marcellus, you get the last word on that. We got to get out of here. Coming up, Darnell Smith with our question of the day. Longtime Colts fan. He's got a question about Peyton Manning. Speak for yourself. Presented by Hyundai. Nerd!